This is Virtua Fighter 5. There's something in another final showdown on the Sony PlayStation 3. And again, this is one of those free games that is available if you're a PlayStation Plus subscriber. Well, I say free, they're not really free because you pay for them via the PlayStation Plus subscription, but if you consider that it probably costs about £50, £40-50 a year for this thing, and you get loads of games, I think you probably make your money back within a month or two anyway. It's terrific value for money. I think I've chatted about that in another one of my previous videos. But anyway, I thought I'd give this a whirl. I mean, as I've said before and demonstrated on numerous times in videos that I've done, I tend to be fairly bloody awful at fighting games, and I don't really think much in the way of exception here. I am, by the way, playing as the ninja guy, ninja looking dude, Cage. But yeah, you introduce any kind of fighting game that has any tactics or anything like that, and usually that completely scuppers me. The Dead or Alive series I just can't get on with at all, but this one was not too bad. It seemed to be kind of tolerant of my hitting random buttons. I won't say button bashing because that implies hitting the same button. I hit random buttons until I find something that looks pretty funky and is kind of effective. And this game seems to be agreeable on that score. So yeah, I've probably found another fighting game that I will probably revisit on more than one occasion. It joins a very elite few. Now I do have Virtua Fighter 3 on the Sega Dreamcast, which I've yet to play. So I at some point will be making a video about that. I'll give that a whirl. Hopefully it'll be as enjoyable to play as this, if not more so. But I like this. It looks really nice, and it plays really well. I enjoy playing it. So yeah, and it's funny really that fighting games were so important in the history of video gaming when you think about it. I mean, I can go right back to the days of the Commodore 64 and playing Way of the Exploding Fist. You know, and that all of these fighting games sort of all very similar to that, one-on-one fighting action. You know, then I had International Karate, then International Karate Plus, or IK Plus as it's more commonly known as, and they just sort of went from there. It seemed that fighting games were always formed a very, very important part of video gaming history, and yeah, it's not changed. It's one of the constants that's probably been there for quite some time. Obviously they've improved as time has gone on, you know, graphically, and the depth of the moves and stuff like that, you know, as joypads have become more complex and have enabled more complicated moves to be pulled off. So the fighting games themselves have become more complex. And it kind of, you can apply that as well to the sorts of scrolling fighting games, the beat-em-ups. They're not so much fighting games, but beat-em-up type games. You know, your Streets of Rage, your Final Fights, your Double Dragons. Those type of games too. Although kind of interestingly enough, they probably have gone under quite a much more marked metamorphosis than your straightforward fighting games like this. The actual beat-em-ups have changed considerably, I think. I mean, you could argue that they're barely recognisable as being in a similar type of game now as they were back in the days of the Streets of Rage games. I mean, now, you know, they're being a much more 3D environment, there's a lot more in depth. I mean, I would struggle actually to think of perhaps modern day equivalent of Streets of Rage or Double Dragon. I mean, I know they re-released Double Dragon Neon, but I didn't really like that. I just thought it was a bit of a poor remake of the original game that had none of the charm of the original game and all of the annoying things that the original had in it. I think it's also very, very slow in its responsiveness, which, you know, is problematic when you're dealing with a fighting game where there's a lot of people coming at you and they all seem to take a humongous amount of damage before they stay down dead. I think your struggle would be to actually better what has gone before. The likes of Final Fight, Streets of Rage, Double Dragon, games of that type of that class were just so damn good that the mistakes perhaps would be just to assume you can stick them in a 3D environment and they would still be just as good. Doesn't really work out. I suppose you could argue there are many sort of 3D beat-em-up games out there, but they don't really have any of the same charm as the originals. I mean, one of the things with these beat-em-ups is I can play this and I can still see elements of Way of the Exploding Fist in there, incredibly enough. You know, in spite of the fact they look nothing like one another, I can still see that. But yeah, I'm probably talking absolute nonsense, but it's just how I see it. But yeah, so there's me finished, there's me dead, and that is Virtua Fighter 5 and the final showdown on the PlayStation 3. It's well worth checking out, especially if you're a PlayStation Plus subscriber. Thank you for watching.